Now we will move on to conjunctions and interjections. Prepositions will be discussed in the next video. I don't have a great deal to say about conjunctions and interjections as far as this course is concerned. These two parts of speech are discussed on pages 17 and 19 in your book, where I provide more detail about each. Please read the definitions, read about the different kinds of conjunctions, but know that you are responsible in this course, and this is the important point, you are responsible in this course for conjunctions that do only what I'm about to discuss on this screen. Only conjunctions that connect words to make lists. So again, in this course, you are responsible for mastering the kind of conjunction that is used to make lists of words. I'll say more about this in a moment, but just be clear about that. In other words, you will not need to know everything or understand everything with a degree of mastery that is described on page 17. So for example, I want you to know what coordinating, correlative, and subordinating conjunctions are for future purposes. I want you to get used to hearing that language. But you will not be asked to identify those types of conjunctions in sentences or on exams. So again, I want you to be familiar with the types of conjunctions. I want you to have been introduced to them in this class, but you will not be responsible for identifying them on the homeworks or the exams. One point I'd like to make about conjunctions, and this is on page 17, it's the first sentence on page 17, is that conjunctions are often confused with adverbs. There is a part 2 to this course that is listed at Lemoyne that I've never been able to teach because it's not required and people have too many requirements to take already. There's interest in it, but people have other priorities, so I've never actually been able to teach the course, but I would really like to get into the distinctions between conjunctions and adverbs and longer and more complicated kinds of sentences, which you'd be really well prepared to study after having taken this course. That being said, however, conjunctions are often confused with adverbs. I just want you to be aware of that, especially for those of you who are teachers or who will be going on to become teachers. You should be aware that the language that often is used and that I hear, it is not always used, but it is often enough used, are the names, two names actually, conjunctive adverb or adverbial conjunction. I discuss these a bit in the book under the adverb and the conjunction sections. These phrases are very confusing. They combine the two names for the two different parts of speech and in a way that doesn't help to clarify much, but in fact says, in my view, and in the view of many whom I know who teach this material, it seems to suggest that conjunctions and adverbs are sort of kind of the same. So let's sort of kind of put those names together. And it's sloppy. It's a sloppy way of thinking. So I'd like you to just be aware of that. I'd like you to be familiar with that language and just be prepared not to necessarily fight against it, but to know that it's in use sometimes, this language of adverbial conjunctions or conjunctive adverbs and so on. And I want you to know simply, having taken this course, that there is such a thing called a conjunction. There's a part of speech that is called a conjunction. There is also a part of speech that is called an adverb, and they do different things. The best way to get familiar with them is to simply use your dictionary, and the Webster's Online, again, is great to study the examples that are offered for the ways in which words that seem in some ways to do similar things are working in different examples or in different cases as conjunctions or as adverbs. This is the same as any other word that we identify or that we come across. And you've been doing this homework now for 2 weeks. You see lots of words that can function as different categories, as different parts of speech. This is no different, except that it's a little trickier to distinguish sometimes how, for example, the word while or the word until can be used as an adverb or a conjunction. So, again, we won't be getting into much detail. I want you to be aware of that. And going now to what you will be held responsible for in this course, please look to the screen. You will need to know the kind of conjunction that connects words, simple words within sentences, as in the examples I offer. I like coffee, tea, and beer. I like coffee, tea, and beer. That happens to be a coordinating conjunction because the and is connecting items of equal importance, words of equal importance. To coordinate means to put things together in a way such that everything is balanced. So words connects, so I like coffee, tea, and beer. Another example, the next example on the screen, Jack prefers either whiskey or bourbon. There we have the either or the or, which is a correlative conjunction, which describes or puts together ideas or items of equal grammatical importance. So Jack prefers either this or that. Grammatically, the two items are held together. They're on the same plane. They're in the same game, on the same playing field, so to speak. But they're different items, and he wants one or another differently at a different time. What he wants at a different time has nothing to do with the grammar. The grammar is expressed as a correlative conjunction by saying that these two items might be weighted differently because they're offering a kind of choice in this example. So again, if you look at the difference between and, coffee, tea, and beer, these three items are equal. Whiskey or bourbon, these two items are not necessarily equal. One could be preferred at one time, one could be preferred at another time. The last conjunction I'd like you to be familiar with is the word but. So that is all I will say because it really is, I am really keeping it that simple for the purposes of this course. I'd like you to understand and be familiar with the conjunctions and, but, and or, because those three conjunctions are used to make lists and are most frequently used to make lists. So and, but, and or. I've given you numbers of examples of conjunctions at the bottom of page 17, and just, have them look them up when you have some time, play around with them, but in general, after you've taken this course, use the dictionary. My dictionary is still my friend. I love playing around with it, and I myself get stuck sometimes, especially when I'm perhaps writing an essay at 5 in the morning, as I know some of you probably are at times as well, and I simply can't think, and the dictionary just helps me to figure out what it is that I'm doing and how I'm thinking at a certain moment. All right, so interjections. If you turn to page 19 in the book, there's one point I want to make about interjections that I'd like you to know that might be new. This definition is what might be new. An interjection is an exclamation that can stand on its own. I'm sure that you all know what interjections are. We've grown up with them. We know what they are. We know the part about an exclamation. Sometimes you'll hear interjections defined as statements of emotion, expressions of excitement, and so on. But those are particular kinds of interjections. For a general definition, you do need to know that an interjection is an exclamation of any kind, an exclamation that can stand on its own. The idea or the point that an interjection can stand on its own is, in fact, what defines a word as an interjection. The fact that grammatically the word can stand on its own. It is outside of the regular logic, the regular, the basic logic of the sentence. Logic about which we'll be speaking very, very shortly when we turn to the parts of sentences in the next session. So here, again, I would like you to know that an interjection is an exclamation that can stand on its own. And I'd like you to understand that to stand on its own, or to be able to stand grammatically on its own, is really important. That's an important phrase to know. It's important to know that that, in fact, is what defines an interjection. So if we look to the first example on the screen, which is also in your book, the word wow, exclamation point. Very typical interjection, and that's probably the only kind of interjection you've seen, or the only kind of interjection that you've explicitly referred to in your experience as an interjection. Maybe it's not, but I think those are the sorts of words attached to exclamation points that we think of as interjections. We all know the Schoolhouse Rock video, or at least some of you do. Interjection for excitement or emotion. I apologize for trying to sing. Anyway, you imagine an exclamation point at the ends of these words. There does not need to be one. There can be one, but there does not need to be one, as in the second example on the screen. Hey, what are you doing? Hey is an interjection because it can stand on its own. It's not part of the regular sentence. It's outside of it. It's an interruption, an exclamation, right? Hey, what are you doing? In the fourth sentence, the word well is the interjection. That is, well, not what I meant. We can take out that well and we have a perfectly grammatical sentence. It is extra material. We could almost put any word in there in place of that well simply to exclaim this pause or this interruption that we want, or that the speaker of that sentence would want in the middle of that sentence. So for example, we could say, as I think I did just say, that is really not what I meant. That is really not what I meant. There are any number of expressions or exclamations that we could put in there that would make equal sense, and none of them are necessary to communicating the sentence, or at least that is to say, the grammatical logic of the sentence. The word okay in the final example works in exactly the same way. Okay, I guess I will go. We can take out that okay, and the sentence still says the same thing. So the okay here offers kind of an exclamation that says yes, yes, or I give in, or something of that sort. But it's not necessary because we already know that the person has agreed to go because he or she has said that or is about to say that in the sentence. Okay, the last point that I will make or that I will alert your attention to is that there are very few interjections in these exercises. There might not even be more than one or two. So just beware. They don't show up very much, as you know. And again, I think you're pretty clear about what these are. So just be aware, and good luck with the homework. Next video coming up is on prepositions.